Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. It's with great pleasure that I can welcome Tim Rolls into our studio. I've been trying to get Tim onto this channel for so long and he's finally caved. Tim is the chairman of the Chelsea Supporters Trust. The Chelsea Supporters Trust is a wonderful organisation. Make sure that you follow them on Twitter, Facebook. They really do fantastic work. They concern themselves with the big issues, you know, safe standing, ticketing, the new stadium, which is the reason I've got Tim here today. Tim, thank you for coming in.
You're very
genuinely
welcome.
mean it.
Very welcome.
I've known Tim for years going to football, and I finally persuaded him to come and talk to us. Tim, you have good knowledge and good insider knowledge on where we may end up. What's happening with the stadium?
Well, I wouldn't say I've got insider knowledge. I mean, the Supporters Trust, part of what we do is we do talk to the club on a range of issues. And the big issues, the big long-term issues, are obviously the new stadium, the redevelopment of Stamford Bridge, but critically, the temporary stadium, because it looks like it could be 3 or 4 years when we're not playing at Chelsea. So it seems, you know, it's been down to 3 potential venues: Wembley, Twickenham or Stratford. I live near Twickenham. The council seems so opposed because the residents are opposed. It's really down to 2. The problem with Stratford is that it may be that Spurs play there. The place is also going to be heavily badged with West Ham because they're moving in August, and it will be, I understand there'll be a lot of claret and blue around, so it'd be strange for Chelsea to play there. Wembley, as I understand it, can have only so many events holding 90,000, but almost unlimited amount holding 50,600 or whatever, which is the bottom tier and the middle tier.
Okay.
So in theory, Chelsea and Spurs could both play there because Spurs have got the same issue. They probably only got it for 1 season or maybe 1.5 seasons, but they're also looking for a home. And obviously, it's not ideal for Chelsea and Tottenham to be looking at the same time. My guess is that Wembley will need the money because the FA is still paying for Wembley. Yeah. So if they can get 3 years' money out of Chelsea, then that's what they'll want to do. Right. Whether Tottenham will play there as well, because if you imagine if we're both in the Champions League and both teams have to play there the same week, it could get very difficult.
God, yeah, it'd be a real problem.
So it could be a real problem. So my guess is that it's Wembley. Obviously, until planning permission is granted on the redevelopment of Stamford Bridge, which will not be, it takes at least 6 months. So the earliest it could possibly be will be late May. It usually takes longer than that. My understanding is the club will not make an announcement on the temporary move until then, unless they're so confident it's going to go through and they've actually signed a deal. My sense is that they would announce it quite quickly after the planning permission is granted, and things would move quite quickly then.
Right, so fingers crossed. Do you know what, Tim, though? You know, we've both been to Wembley, and we've both been to Wembley when it's packed, and we've seen our team win trophies there. Yeah. It's not electric at the best of times, is it?
It's not, and
50,000 in there is going to feel grim, isn't it?
It will feel strange, and I think, you know, but then going to Stratford, where the distance between the pitch and the crowd, West Ham are going to find this next season, where people at the back are an awful long way away, further than they are at Wembley, at the top of Wembley. So it's going to be quite difficult. But Wembley, getting an atmosphere at Wembley would be difficult. I think if it's the bottom tier, it's probably easier, but I suspect a lot of the noise just disappear, travel up and go out. Now, but we have to find a temporary home. You know, it's unrealistic and unfeasible to rebuild Stamford Bridge a stand at a time. Yeah. I think they've looked at it, they did it before. Yeah. And because of the scale of what they're doing and the fact they're digging down, it's going to take, I think, several months just to clear the existing ground before they start rebuilding. So, and if we move to Wembley or Stratford or even Twickenham, you then have the issue about ticket pricing, because there's a lot of fuss at the moment, quite rightly, about the excessive prices charged in Premier League football.
They did wonderful things, didn't they? Liverpool last weekend. Even Arsenal did very well, didn't they?
No, Arsenal did well. They got the surcharge removed on the Barcelona ticket. I think that Liverpool, what they did, it's probably a one-off in terms of the impact it had, but it made the club realise, made the owners realise, terrible PR for them. So they've gone back and they're not going to put up the prices that they were going to put up. I'm not saying that would work for everybody, and part of what the Supporters Trust is about is meeting with other trusts and talking about joint campaigns across the Premier League. And we're at a meeting, myself and a colleague, Cliff Auger, at the meeting next week to discuss exactly that. But the specific issue for Chelsea, next season up to a point, but it's if we're at 3 years say we're 3 years at Wembley, and say we got Blackburn Rovers in the League Cup on a Wednesday night in November. How low would ticket prices have to be to sell 50,000? You know,
being completely honest with you, Tim, I don't think that we would sell. I don't think that we'd sell 50,000 tickets at a tenner a pop.
Yeah.
Do you?
Well, I think we would struggle, but I think even for Premier League games, I think there is a concern that long-term season ticket holders may take the view that they don't need to get season tickets at Wembley because there'll be spare tickets going for almost every game. And once people get out of the habit of buying season tickets, it's whether they buy them and go back.
Yeah.
And then you get into issues about the club will want to incentivise people. So they may reduce season tickets. Say they reduce season ticket prices and people stick with that. And some new people get season tickets. When we move back to Stamford Bridge, who gets priority? Presumably the ones that have had them all the time.
Yeah.
But is it the people who've only just taken them out or the people that had them and went on a holiday for 3? So you then get into these issues. So I think to sell out, to be honest, to sell out Wembley for non-big games, they're going to have to do some pretty clever.
Will Wembley be cheap? Do you think that they'll be able to keep the prices down at Wembley if we go there?
Well, I don't know. What I don't know, obviously, is what rental they're paying to Wembley, because they won't get the catering income. They'll sell a lot less merchandising, so there won't be a club shop. So it will be stalls. It will be very different. The catering, my guess is that the catering would go to Wembley.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
So that they'll lose all of that. There will be games, I suspect, where, maybe where we don't sell it. On the other hand, I mean, I don't know, but it may be for a small number of games, we could use the whole 90,000 if Wembley gets so many games a year they can use. I think it's 19. If they weren't having many rock concerts in the summer, it may be for the odd game. I don't know. I've got no inside view on that. But of course that'd be fantastic.
That would be fantastic. But it's sort of a one-off, isn't it?
Yeah. It won't be the normal. And I think what you'll find is that Chelsea will very much, and I'm sure Spurs will do the same, they will price to incentivise people to keep going. Because if you take the view that Wembley is further away than Stamford Bridge, where most people live, and say you mapped where the average Chelsea season ticket holder lives, or the members, because they've got all the information. I'm sure there's software. You could take all the postcodes and map them.
Yeah.
And then you did that with Wembley, most people would be further. So I think at the very least, the club should be looking at reducing the ticket prices by the amount of extra money it would cost to get from Stamford Bridge to Wembley.
That's a wonderful idea. I think you may be being slightly optimistic.
But I think, yes, I may be. But
I think, of course, that should happen. Of course, Chelsea should take that into account. But this is a club who, in the past, at least in my opinion, don't necessarily put supporters' needs at the top of the list.
No, but I think they are conscious that there is a challenge when we move, that there will be an emotional break the day we stop playing at Stamford Bridge for a lot of people. And I think there will be people that stop. I think season ticket holders, some of them will just take out memberships and do that. And to attract people, they need to be clever on pricing. It's going to take people longer, an awful lot of people longer to get there. If you live in, I don't know, Sutton or Worcester Park.
If you live in Worcester Park, which is where loads of Chelsea fans live, you're knackered.
Yeah. Well, I get the train home after the game from Wimbledon. The platforms are full of Chelsea fans going to Guildford, going to Woking, all that way, Those people would either have to go into Clapham Junction and then get one train an hour, which is packed anyway, up to Wembley, or go into Waterloo, or change at Wimbledon and go slow up to Edgware Road and then walk to Marlow. But it's not easy.
Does a North London boy like me a world of good, though, Tim? Every cloud does have a silver lining.
Well, it does for some people, but I think for most people.
Of course,
For me personally, Twickenham would be great because there's a bus from the end of my road stops outside the stadium. But I just don't think Twickenham's going to happen. And to be honest, for a lot of supporters, Stratford would be no more difficult than Wembley because you've got to go into Waterloo. It's the Jubilee line going a different way. Yeah, and there's loads of ways against Stratford.
Do you know what? I mean, we've mentioned West Ham a fair bit during this, and I think what they've done recently is incredible. Have you seen that they've bought in £200 season tickets for, I think, under 18s? And they've got, I think, the cheapest season ticket for an adult is about £400. That's exemplary, isn't it?
Yes,
what they've done there. They're going to be poaching supporters, young football-going supporters from other clubs.
Yeah, they are. I mean, what you need to bear in mind is they're getting that stadium for next to nothing.
Yes, of course.
For a deal that I'm personally extremely uncomfortable about. And there's still a campaign going on about that. But accepting that they are going to move in, it's not going to cost them much money. So they've got more flex to do it. But they've made a decision, and it's the right one, to price to sell out. Because you don't want to move into a new stadium and only get 35,000 people there when it holds 50,000 or whatever the capacity is.
Price to sell out. That's
exactly price to sell out. And once they've got those young fans, they'll then have, the hope will be for them that they will stay with the club when they go through their 20s, and then they're in for life and they're into the match going, sort of the mentality, if you like. Because one concern I have is when Premier League ticket prices are so high, I mean, the average age of season ticket holders at Chelsea, as I understand it, is mid-40s, right? I sit in Matthew Harding Upper, Block 8. I'm 58. I'm about the average age of the people around where I sit, and I'm not being disrespectful to anybody.
No.
So in 20 years' time, a lot of those people aren't going to be coming. So Chelsea and other Premier League clubs desperately need to get more young fans in.
Yeah.
I think Wembley or Stratford is an opportunity to start that and to really have a designated area for young people, bigger area.
Yeah.
And then we go back to the new ground. They need to have a proper young people's area, and that needs to be considerably cheaper.
Cheap
Now,
and maybe unreserved seating.
Yeah, maybe,
but you know,
yeah.
when you, because obviously you are in quite a privileged position that you do sometimes have a
Yeah.
discourse with
Yeah.
the club.
Yeah.
Do they ever seem receptive to these ideas? Like, do you feel that we could have a situation where we'd have a block of unreserved seating?
Well, I think anything like that, obviously there are security concerns, there are safety concerns. Now, recently, a lot of this is organised by something called the Hammersmith and Fulham Safety Advisory Group, which is a group where the council, the police, the club, the British Transport Police, all the ambulance service, all meet and talk about Stamford Bridge and games at Chelsea. They do it twice a year. Until recently, there's been no supporter representation on there. We have managed.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
Who cares about them?
Yeah. Well, but we have managed, after working quite hard with the council, to get where we will have a pre-meeting before that meeting. We'll have a post-meeting afterwards, and anything we put on the agenda will be discussed.
That's
We're not
incredible.
in the room, but so
that's really good
yeah.
work. See how brilliant this is, this Chelsea Supporters Trust. Make sure that you follow it on Twitter, and make sure that you sign up and become a member, because they really do some fantastic stuff.
But the point of that is that it means that when the new ground is being redeveloped, obviously things like the fans forum will continue and we're all very well, but those are not decision-making bodies. The decision-making bodies are the senior level of the club, and what we're very keen to do is to talk to the senior level of the club, have input, listen to what the police say, because obviously their input is important, what the council say, but get the supporter input in there. Unreserved seating would be fantastic. I think within 5 years there will be safe standing in this country. It won't happen quickly, but there is a mood for it to happen. There were clubs I think would do it if the will was there, and I think eventually the will be there.
Do you feel like that could a Chelsea one of those clubs? Do you
Well,
think?
Chelsea, I know, saw we organised an exhibition outside the ground of safe standing 2 or 3 years ago, and I know the club have also seen that exhibition. They understand it. I think the message they gave then, that they wouldn't be the first, but they wouldn't necessarily be unreceptive. But given it could be 4 or 5 years before we move back into a ground, you know, safe standing, just to be clear, it's not going to return back to the terraces of the 60s and 70s.
No, it'd be like the German system.
Exactly like the German system. It's rail seating that you can put back into seats for the Champions League where it has to be seats. But it gives people a chance to stand. You have small blocks, so it's unreserved up to a point.
Right.
Because I'm a great believer in unreserved seating. When I used to go as a kid in the late 60s and the 70s, even in the 80s, you just met in the pub.
All go together.
You all go together and just stand together. You didn't have to have tickets.
Yeah.
Because where the club, I think, struggle to understand, they can't understand, I don't think, why more people don't use the catering facilities in the ground. Now, there's issues about quality and price, but there's also the issue that mates don't all sit around them. So if you're sitting in the Matthew Harding upper and your mate sits in the shed lower, you can't congregate in the ground. So I think there's an issue when they redevelop Stamford Bridge for having a proper concourse or some sort of system.
You could go all the way
where
around.
people will go around, or have an area where before you go into the turnstiles you can have a drink, because that's the only way that people are going to use the club facilities.
Yeah.
See, at Wembley you have actually got that.
No,
you can walk around most of it. So that is better.
So that's really interesting. So are Chelsea fans, do we not make them the most of the catering? Are the club disappointed with the amount of beers they sell?
I think they could sell more before the game. I mean, obviously half time is different, but I think they could sell more, and they have occasionally had moves to try and get more people in earlier. But the fact, and given how many pubs are closing in the area, you know, you've got a situation where more people are drinking in Putney now. They're drinking the other end of the North End Road. Yeah. People drinking in Earl's Court. It's miles away, and more pubs are closing. And you keep hearing of more. So in theory, more people should be using the club facilities. But the fact is, it may be at the margins, but an awful lot of people will not use the club facilities because they cannot drink with their friends because they're sitting in different parts of the ground.
Of course.
So there's a lot of challenges for the club.
It's so interesting. Tim, thank you so much for coming on and talking to us about it. And please come see us again.
Absolutely,
it really genuinely is a massive pleasure to have
very
you on.
happy to come on.
Guys, I hope you enjoyed that. As I said before, make sure that you're following the Chelsea Supporters Trust, and make sure that you sign up. They really do fantastic work. Comment below, let me know exactly what you think of this video, and go on you Blues. Welcome to the Chelsea Fans Channel. We are here to talk about the John Terry contract saga